After studying this module, you shall be able to identify how language develops in different age groups and through different phases of life, evaluate the major changes taking place in the vocabulary and communicative skills with age, analyze how language development varies in pace and quality across different age groups, the role of globalization in language development, how environmental and parental factors influence the linguistic capacities of children, how language development continues beyond childhood and school age. Language development is an important part of our growth. It is a gift of life that makes us the supreme species on this planet. It is a sophisticated skill that we learn in the beginning of our lifespan, a thing so important and yet taken for granted like many other gifts of nature. As a newborn comes to this world, cries for the first time till the day he or she leaves the earth as an old man, language development continues throughout the lifetime. This development occurs at a variable yet an almost predetermined pace. The speed and the agility with which this occurs can sometimes be astounding. Millions of years of evolution as attempts at communication have finally resulted in what we have today, a language, a sophisticated system of communication between two or more persons. Several theories have been put forward to explain the process of language development, which have been discussed in the previous module. The preceding module has also explained how an infant acquires the basics and beyonds of language. The previous chapter has discussed on what language is, how we define it, and what the various components of language are, and the various theories of language development. The major theories include behavioral perspective, which believes that language development is acquired from the environment, and biological perspective, which emphasizes that language development is an inborn tendency. Language development is shaped by a mix of several factors: genetic, environmental, and biological. And it will be followed by the concepts of language development through our lifespan. It will throw light on several questions like what the various changes taking place in the process of language development are. This chapter shall discuss how language acquisition goes on beyond infancy. Like in infancy, language development in childhood is also not short of a miracle. It is no doubt not a child's play, so as to speak, but every child masters it, albeit step by step. The development in phonological awareness, vocabulary, semantics, syntax, and pragmatics during early childhood, middle and late childhood, adolescence, and adults will be discussed in this module. Language. Defining language. Like mentioned earlier, language is a very important aspect of our life. In simple terms, language is a systematized means of communication between human beings. Language is a form of communication, whether spoken, written, or signed, that is based on structures of rules and symbols. The definition explains that language does not include only the verbal form of communication, but also consists of written signs and symbols that we use in order to express our views and ideas to others. There are many different languages, and each language has different dialects, but whatever we speak, the meaning we express, and the emotion we express are still the same. Language development through different ages. Infancy. Apart from walking, language development is one of the major accomplishments made by the baby, which is eagerly awaited by the parents. Whatever language they learn, infants all over the world follow a similar pattern in language development. Language development covers not only the development taking place when a child starts to speak verbally, rather it also involves how a child uses various signs and gestures in order to attract attention and communicate before they acquire the ability to convey their message verbally. Language development in infancy occurs at an amazing pace. As a child acquires language, he reaches certain milestones at a predetermined age. These include cooing at first 2 months, babbling at 6 months, use of gestures at 8 to 12 months, and speaking of first word at 13 months. Along with this process of language development and the achievements made in the areas of phonology, vocabulary, semantics, syntax, and pragmatics in infancy, and the milestones of language have been dealt with in the previous module. These milestones have been discussed in the previous chapter. Failure to reach these milestones at appropriate age may signal a language problem. Early childhood. Phonology. By early childhood, ability to combine 3 or 4 words to form simple sentences is gradually acquired. The transition from simple sentences to complex sentences begins at the age of 2 to 3 years. They begin to grasp the basic rules governing the language system. During the preschool year, most children gradually become sensitive to sounds of the spoken words. They also know morphological rules and syntax. They show a growing mastery of complex rules of how words should be ordered. They become skilled at using syntactic rules to construct lengthy and complex sentences. Although most of the phonological development is largely complete by the age of 5, a few syllables stress pattern are not acquired yet. Advances in the pragmatics can also be seen in this stage. Their knowledge of meaning also rapidly advances. Their speaking vocabulary also increases. Semantics. During the elementary year, the vocabulary increases 4-folds. The speaking vocabulary of a 6-year-old child ranges from 8,000 to 14,000 words. On an average, children learn about 22 words a day. A child's ability to understand the meaning of these many words makes us wonder how they acquire this ability in such a short period of time. Fast mapping is a process in which children can understand a new word with an underlying concept after only a brief encounter. Grammatical. At 3 years, 3-word sentences begin to appear in which children clearly follow a subject-verb-object order. Between the age of 2.5 and 3 years, children create sentences in which adjectives, articles, nouns, verbs and prepositions start to conform to an adult structure, indicating they have mastered the grammatical aspects of their language. They also start to add grammatical morphemes that are small marker that change the meaning of sentences, as in John's dog and he is playing. But once they have learned to apply the regular morphological rules, they extend it to the words that are exceptions, a type of error called over-regularization. Pragmatics. Children begin to show different situation calls for different forms of speech around the age of 3. They adjust their speech depending on the listener and begin to use polite forms. Their acquired ability to sense mood coupled with the repeated instructions of their parents let them react according to the situation. Research has found that preschoolers have problem with referential communication, but when observed in natural settings, young children do show sensitivity to the needs of their communication partner. Preschoolers show the beginnings of metalinguistic awareness. Their understandings are good predictor of vocabulary and grammatical development, literacy development in case of phonological awareness. The major advancement in metalinguistic skills takes place in middle childhood. Preparing for literacy. In today's generation, education is considered as one of the most essential aspects for leading a successful and better life. It is very crucial to recognize the importance of language and literacy in preparing children to succeed in school. Though children do not attend any school at this stage, literacy development starts early in life. The preschool years set the stage for literacy development. During these years, children may have many print-related interactions such as having books read to them, looking through books and magazines, and learning to write their names. For children who participate in print-related interactions as preschoolers, literary skills often come quickly in school. However, many children who have not had print-related interaction in the preschool years will take longer to develop literacy. Limited interaction with language and literacy during early childhood might be related to reading difficulties later on. Well-conceived curriculum, adequate teacher training, and clarity of purpose are well-known determinants of successful language development in early childhood. Family support and background literacy also influence a child's language development in a major way. Middle and late childhood. Vocabulary and grammar. Beyond early childhood, children develop rapid advances in language skills. The middle part of childhood is characterized by a rapid spurt in vocabulary. This spurt is influenced in a big way by the linguistic interaction with parents and also the socio-economic status. With age, they begin to not just acquire but also to categorize their vocabulary by parts of speech. They are able to use complex grammar during talking and make conversation more alive. These skills make them able to speak in a more descriptive and narrative way than before. Metalinguistic awareness. Metalinguistic awareness refers to the ability to think about language as a system. In short, cognition of language. It improves greatly during the elementary school. It is the knowledge about language which allows the children to think about their language, understand what words are, and even define them. The education imparted in class along with the interaction with family and mates greatly enhances the knowledge of language, meaning of words, the syntax, and parts of speech. One visible way in which children demonstrate their metalinguistic awareness is through language play, like humor and metaphor, like intentionally mislabeling objects, creating funny words, telling jokes or riddles, or using words in a figurative sense. Pragmatics. By elementary school, children learn to react and converse as the situation demands. During this period, illocutionary intent also develops. Illocutionary intent means what a person means to say, even if the form of utterance is not perfectly consistent with it. Children at this age begin to understand the subtle meaning and the intonations of spoken language. For example, an 8-year-old who has forgotten to do his chores understands that when his mother says, "The garbage is beginning to smell," she really means, "Take the garbage out." Bilingualism. We live in a cosmopolitan world. Globalization brings inevitable changes like migration, religious and cultural assimilation. There is hardly a city or town which is inhabited by a single community. Due to this, throughout the world, many children grow bilingually, and sometimes they learn more than 2 languages. Bilingualism is the ability to speak 2 languages. It has found to have positive effects on children's cognitive development and metalinguistic awareness. Children become bilinguals in 2 ways. First, by acquiring both languages at the same time during early childhood, and second, by learning a second language after mastering the first. The latter happens in more often cases. Second language or non-mother tongue language is acquired mostly during middle childhood as the child starts to interact out of family, reading and writing. Elementary school teaches children to read and write for the first time. Children learn to speak language before they acquire the ability to read and write. Unlike speaking, which involves simply listening to what the others are saying, before learning to read and write, it is important to learn what each word is, learn how to recognize and talk about sounds, and also learn the alphabetical principles. Adolescence. Identity formation is one of the major developments taking place during adolescence and adulthood. It is the stage when a person tries to understand who he really is and what he wants to be and starts to discover himself. Since it is a very important life event, most of the studies of adolescence are focused more on studying identity development. Phonology. Increased intellectual ability and experiences during childhood allows adolescents to use words and sentences with increased complexity. They develop the ability to abstract thinking and analyzing the function of word plays in a sentence. They master the stress pattern of abstract words. The stress pattern of few words signaling subtle differences in the meaning are acquired in adolescence, and it still continues throughout the adulthood. Adolescents can comprehend the meaning of over 40,000 words, including many abstract terms. Along with it, studies have found that the vocabularies often continue to increase throughout most of the adult years, at least until late adulthood. Semantics and Syntax. Adolescents make stride in the field of semantics. They master the understanding of metaphors and the ability to understand and use satire, sarcasm, proverbs, and irony. This ability and the advances in logical thinking helps them to understand complex literary works. They are able to organize their thoughts and ideas before they speak or write. Adolescents also often use jargon and improvised words in communicating among themselves. For example, when they meet with friends, they prefer to say, "Give me 5" instead of saying "hello." Pragmatics. By this age, a person will have mastered the skill to communicate clearly and in accordance with social expectations in diverse situations. Adolescents develop the ability to speak in detailed, well-expressed narratives. They are able to adapt their language style to social context. Their growing experience with different life situations gives them the skills and cognitive self-regulation which helps them in dealing with different kinds of situations in more appropriate manners, like being able to speak in persuasive, well-organized fashion. They have also to learn how to speak appropriately in different contexts. For instance, they talk with sensitivity and respect when with elders, with care or authority with youngsters, and casually among themselves. Adulthood. It is a widely held belief that language development occurs and gets complete by adolescence. As such, most of the studies of language development generally emphasized on infancy and childhood. Many believe that adults do not acquire new language skills, but the truth is far from that. In fact, adults continue to improve their knowledge of words and word meanings with age. Phonology. The stress pattern of few words signaling subtle differences in meaning are acquired in adolescence, and it still continues till adulthood. Semantics and Syntax. With age, adults continue to improve their vocabulary stock and writing and communication skills. In contrast to young age, it is their experiences and self-study that fuels this growth. Sandrock in 2007 said that some decrements in language might appear in the late adulthood, which may be due to the deterioration of physical, like hearing problem, as well as mental health, like decline in memory skills of the person. During adolescence, they refine complex grammatical structures such as passive voice and infinitive phrases. They continue to inculcate the higher and refined grammatical structures in their adulthood. Pragmatics. By this age, a person will have mastered the skill to communicate clearly and in accordance with social expectations in diverse situations. The pragmatic skills honed during adolescence are refined and fine-tuned during adulthood. All adults eventually come to possess the ability to speak in the most demanding situations in very appropriate and meaningful ways. Summary. Language is symbolic and structured way of conveying meaning between two or more people. It facilitates cooperative social systems and transmission of ideas and knowledge. It is a skill not present at birth but acquired soon afterwards in other lifetime. The definition of language includes not only the verbal form of communication but also consists of written signs and symbols that we use in order to express our views and ideas to others. Language development begins in early infancy and gradually picks up throughout childhood. The ability to speak simple sentences appears as early as 18 months, followed by complex sentences at the age of 2 to 3 years. During middle and late childhood, a sudden increase in vocabulary and grammatical skills occur. Metalinguistic awareness, pragmatics also develop. With the increase in abstract thinking abilities, language development in adolescence involves an enhancement in the use of words and sentences in more complex manner. Adult years are characterized by increase in vocabularies and increased understanding of metaphor, satire, sarcasm, proverbs, and irony. By adulthood, a person becomes sufficiently skilled to communicate clearly and in accordance with social expectations in diverse situations.